Welcome to lunch. We are beginning the book of Esther. And it came to be in the days of Ahasuerus. He is the Cush, 127 provinces. In those days, when sovereign Ahasuerus saw that on the throne of his reign, which was in the citadel of Shushan, that in the 3rd year of his reign he made a feast for all his officials and servants. The power of Persia and Media, the nobles and the princes of the provinces were before him. When he showed the riches of his esteemed reign and the splendor of his excellent greatness for many days, 180 days. And when these days were completed, the sovereign made a feast lasting 7 days for all the people who were present in the citadel of Shushan. From great to small, in the courtyard of the garden of the sovereign's palace, white and blue tapestries were fastened with cords of fine linen and purple on silver rods and marble columns. The couches were of gold and silver on a mosaic pavement of porphyry, marble, mother of pearl, and black marble. And they served drinks in gold vessels, the vessels being different from one another, with much royal wine, according to the hand of the sovereign. And great was according to the law, no one was compelled, for so the sovereign had ordered all the officials of his house, that they should do according to each one's pleasure. Sovereigness Vashti also made a feast for the women in the royal palace, which sovereign Ahasuerus owned. On the 7th day, when the heart of the sovereign was glad with wine, he ordered Mehuman, Biztha, Harbona, Bigtha, and Abagtha, Zethar, and Carcas, the 7 eunuchs who were in attendance in the presence of sovereign Ahasuerus, to bring sovereigness Vashti before the sovereign with her royal crown, in order to show her loveliness to the people and the officials, for she was lovely to look upon. But sovereigness Vashti refused to come to the sovereign's command brought by the eunuchs, and the sovereign was very wroth, and his rage burned within him. So the sovereign said to the wise men who understood the times, for in this way the sovereign's matter came before all who knew law and right ruling, and who were close to him, Karshena, Shethar, Admatha, Tarshish, Meres, Marsena, Memucan, the 7 princes of Persia and Media, who saw the sovereign's face, who sat first in the reign. According to the law, what is to be done to sovereigness Vashti, because she did not perform the command of sovereign Ahasuerus through the eunuchs? And Memucan answered before the sovereign and the princes, Sovereigness Vashti has misbehaved, not only toward the sovereign, but also toward all the princes and all the people who are in all the provinces of sovereign Ahasuerus. For the matter of the sovereigness shall go forth to all women who make their husbands despised in their eyes. And they say, Sovereign Ahasuerus commanded sovereigness Vashti to be brought before him, and she did not come. And this day the princesses of Persia and Media shall say to all the sovereign's officials that they have heard of the matter of the sovereigness with plenty of scorn and wrath. If it pleases the sovereign, let a royal decree go out from him, and let it be recorded in the laws of the Persians and the Medes, so that it does not pass away, that Vashti shall come no more before sovereign Ahasuerus, and let the sovereign give her royal position to another who is better than she. And the sovereign's decree which he makes shall be proclaimed through all his rule great as it is, and all the wives give esteem to their husbands, both great and small. And the word is gone in the eyes of the sovereign. And the princes and the sovereign did according to the word of Memucan. So he sent letters to all the sovereign's provinces, to each province in its own writing, and to make every people in their own language, that each man should be master in his own house and speak in the language of his people. After these events, when the wrath of sovereign Ahasuerus was ceased, he remembered Vashti, what she had done, and what had been decreed against her. Then the sovereign's servants who attended him said, "Let lovely young maidens be sought for the sovereign, and let the sovereign appoint officers in all the provinces of his reign, and let them gather all the lovely young maidens to the citadel of Shushan, into the women's quarters, under the hand of Haggai, the sovereign's eunuch, guardian of the women, to give their preparation. And let the young women who pleases the sovereign be sovereigness instead of Vashti." And the word pleased the sovereign, and he did so. In the citadel of Shushan there was a certain man, a Yehudi, whose name was Mordecai, son of Yair, son of Shimi, son of Kish, a Benjamite, who had been exiled from Jerusalem with the captives who had been exiled with Jeconiah, sovereign of the Yehuda, whom Nebuchadnezzar, the sovereign of Babel, had exiled. And it came to be that he was raising Hadassah, that is, Esther, his uncle's daughter, for she had neither father nor mother. The young woman was beautiful and of good appearance. And when her father and mother died, Mordecai took her as his own daughter. And it came to be, when the sovereign's command and decree were heard, and when many young women were gathered at the citadel of Shushan into the hand of Haggai, that Esther too was taken to the sovereign's palace into the hand of Haggai, guardian of the women. And the young woman pleased him, and she received loving commitment from him. So he hastened to give her preparations and her portions, and gave her 7 choice female servants from the sovereign's palace. And he moved her and her female servants to the best place in the house of the women. Esther had not made known her people or her relatives, for Mordecai had commanded her not to make it known. And every day Mordecai walked about in front of the courtyard of the women's quarters to learn of Esther's welfare and what is done to her. Now, when the turn of young women came to go into the sovereign Ahasuerus, after she had completed 12 new moons, according to a regulation for the women, for the days of their preparation were completed as follows: 6 new moons with oil of myrrh, and 6 new moons with perfumes and with preparations of women. Thus prepared, the young women went to the sovereign, and whatever she asked for was given, to take with her from the house of the women to the sovereign's palace. In the evening she went, and in the morning she returned to the second house of the women, into the hand of Shah Ashgaz, the sovereign's eunuch, guardian of the concubines. She would not come into the sovereign again unless the sovereign delighted in her and called for her by name. And when the turn came for Esther, the daughter of Abihail, the uncle of Mordecai, who had taken her as his daughter, to come in to the sovereign, she sought no matter but what Haggai, the sovereign's eunuch, the guardian of the women, advised, and Esther found favor in the eyes of all who saw her. And Esther was taken to sovereign Ahasuerus into his royal palace in the 10th new moon, which is the new moon of Tebeth, in the 7th year of his reign. And the sovereign loved Esther more than all the other women, and she found favor and loving commitment in his eyes more than all the maidens. And he set the royal crown upon her head and made her sovereigness instead of Vashti. And the sovereign made a great feast, the feast of Esther, for all his officials and servants. And he proclaimed a release in the provinces and gave gifts according to the means of a sovereign. And when maidens were assembled a second time, Mordecai sat within the sovereign's gate. Esther had not made known her relatives and her people yet, as Mordecai commanded her, for Esther obeyed and commanded of Mordecai, as when she was being raised by him. In those days, while Mordecai sat within the sovereign's gate, 2 of the sovereign's eunuchs, Bigthan and Teresh, doorkeepers, were wroth and sought to lay hands on sovereign Ahasuerus. And the matter became known to Mordecai, who informed sovereigness Esther, and Esther spoke to the sovereign in Mordecai's name. And when the matter was searched into, it was confirmed, and both were hanged on a wooden structure. And it was written in the book of the Annals in the presence of the sovereign.